So today, or the day I release this video, it's Valentine's Day, so of course I was going to do a film that was all lovey-dovey. Also, I think since doing the series, it's the first film I've done that is lovey-dovey. Well, let's ruin Valentine's Day, shall we? The Notebook is a 2004 American romantic drama based on the 1996 novel the same name by Nicholas Sparks. The film tells the story of a young couple called Noah and Ali who embark on a love story throughout the 1940s, but their different backgrounds causes trouble. When the film was released, it did perform really well at the box office and it actually has received a number of awards. However, it did only get mixed reviews. But why? What was wrong with that film? Well, let's find out as we discuss 10 things wrong with The Notebook. Number 10, opening. The film opens up with a man rowing across a lake at either sunset or sunrise. That's it. The music was dull. And yeah, that was just the whole thing. The opening of this film was just so boring. I actually wanted to turn the film off. I was like, I can't sit through 2 hours of this film if this is the opening of the film. The opening is supposed to be the teaser. It's supposed to get us into the film, and yet this opening just wanted me to go to sleep. Number 9, controlling women. So a lot of people say that this is a really romantic film. So please tell me how a man controlling a woman is romantic. No, he does control her. Quite early on in the film, they go on a date, and after the date, they walk away, and he goes and lies in the middle of her road. There's more to it, but that's just a summary of it. And he makes a comment saying she's not free. And she says, yes, I am free. No, you're not. Come and join me to prove you're free. That is controlling. And he does that quite a lot through this film. Do this, prove you love me. Do this, you prove you love me. This man actually controls this woman. It's not really, when you look into it, it's not really that romantic. Number 8, on-screen chemistry. When you're watching a romantic film, the most important thing is to have on-screen chemistry. And sorry, Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams, to me, in my opinion, didn't actually have that. In fact, Rachel McAdams actually had better on-screen chemistry with James Marsden, who always seems to be in roles where he plays second fiddle in a love triangle. Check out X-Men, check out Superman Returns. It's his thing. But they had good on-screen chemistry, whereas Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams, I got the impression they were more friends than lovers. And that's the thing. When you're watching a film like this, you need to believe it, and sorry, no, I didn't believe it at all. Number 7, trousers. Quite late on in the film, as Noah and Ali finally get it on, she pulls down his trousers, they're around his ankles. He picks her up and then walks up the stairs with his trousers around his ankles while carrying someone. I'm calling BS on that. Hell, if I'm walking around with my trousers around my ankles, I can't do anything, let alone carry someone, let alone walking upstairs. No, that was... wonder how many days it actually took him to film that. How many times did he fall over? There's got to be a blooper reel of how many times he tried it. Because yeah, no, that's a load of rubbish, that bit. Number 6, glorifying affairs. So literally, just after what I've just spoken about, the next day, they're talking, and then Noah's girlfriend turns up at the door, and she realises straight away, and she gets invited in and has breakfast and spends the day talking with them. You do realise he's just spent the day banging that other girl, don't you? You just glorify, you've just given okay. Oh, it's okay, I forgive you, you've just had an affair behind my back. But that's not the worst one. And same again, this is James Marsden to a T. Lon actually forgives Ali and says, stay with me, be with me, I forgive you for having an affair with another bloke. This is just wrong. You're glorifying having an affair here. No, I would have gone around and decked the bloke and told the missus to bugger off. I do love my missus, honestly. Number 5, children. So in the modern day parts, while they're telling the flashbacks, their children come and turn up. Now their children are about the same age as me. Now I'm just approaching 40. I was born in 1981, hence Berryman 81. So these children born late 70s, early 80s, this story took place in the 40s. And they were in their teens, 20s. So 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. So 40 years on. 40 years on? So they would have been in their 50s when they had children. No. Their grandchildren would have been around about my age, but their children? No. Someone really screwed up that part there. Number 4, arguments. In any loving relationship, you always will have arguments. But the one thing you don't want is to have arguments all the time. Me and my missus, we very, very rarely argue. We just tend sit in a strop with the other person, but that's a different story. Ali's and Noah's relationship in this film seems to be entirely based on arguments. Really? Sorry, no, I would have told you, no, sorry, it's not working. We're going to call it quits. Not if you are going to argue all of the time. No relationship is worth that much aggro or hassle. Number 3, social divide. One thing I did think was an interesting concept that this film brought up was the social divide. She's from a rich family, he's from a poor family. I've now got a Queen song stuck in my head. So I thought that was quite an interesting dynamic and something they could really build on in this film. Except they didn't. In fact, it was just put to one side. It wasn't really a major issue in this film. It should have been, and it could have made the film a lot more interesting than what it was. And I think that was more wasted opportunity. Number 2, flashbacks. Yeah, of course I was going to put flashbacks on my list. I hate flashbacks. But here's the shocker. The flashbacks were actually really well done. And I wasn't actually going to put the flashbacks in my list, except the modern day part was done brilliantly. In fact, I found myself more interested and more captivated by what was happening in the modern day stuff than I was what was happening in the 1940s. Now, it wasn't a shock horror. I worked out that the old couple weren't Noah and Ali. That was quite obvious early on in the film. But I still found that interesting. I really got into that part of the story. But that wasn't the main focus of the film. The main focus of the film is the 1940s, which is where I find it a bit more dull and lifeless and boring. Make me a whole film about the whole escapades of modern day, I probably would have been a lot more interested in it. But that also does lead me on to the next point. Number 1, happy ending. We're not in a massage parlour, so get that thought out of your head. But the one thing, when you're watching a love film, a romantic film, it's the unwritten law, it has to end on a happy ending. Not this film. In fact, this ending of this film was sweet, but it was really sad, and it wasn't what I was expecting from a film that's all about love, to a young couple getting together and spending their life together, obviously cuddled up in a bed in an old people's home, dying together. Now, as much as that was sweet, and I'll admit it moved me a little bit, but I don't like the fact that this had an unhappy ending. I wanted something joyous. I wanted the boy gets the girl. We're going to go off and have lots of fun for the rest of our life. That's what I wanted, not to be made really upset. Final thoughts. As I said in the intro, this film, it got mixed reviews. Now, watching this film, I can actually understand why it was mixed. It wasn't appalling, it wasn't bad like last week's video, but it wasn't a masterpiece, and it had potential. Like I've said, the biggest missed opportunity is the social divide. That could have been something so interesting, but they didn't really pull the trigger on it. I also thought it was more drawn out than it needed to be. This film is 2 hours and 5 minutes long, and yet it didn't need to be. It could have been made a little bit shorter. What they got shorter and added something more into it, just to make it that more compelling. As I said, I was more moved by the modern day stuff than I was the stuff in the 1940s. I will admit, I found that quite boring. Now, it's probably, as I said, due to lack of chemistry, and I think that's what hurts this film, is there's no real chemistry between the leads. Now, majority of the film looks beautiful, the shots are brilliant, and I know the kiss scene in the rain has won numerous awards, and I can understand why. It's a beautiful shot, But put it with the rest of it, it sort of falls flat. There was also a lot of technical issues wrong with this film. There's a couple of times where the audio is out, where people are actually talking and the mouths aren't moving. Now, normally that's understandable if the camera's behind the head, but there was one scene where James Marsden is actually in front of the camera talking, and he's just there going. And there was a couple of camera shots where they were bad, but also, this is the thing. This is a film that could have done better. It actually had the potential. Now, this isn't my cup of tea sort of film, but I do think it was wasted, and that's the problem with this film. It had a nice premise. I just don't think they used the premise to their potential, and that is the biggest issue with this film. But ultimately, the modern day scene's actually what saves this film. So what am I going to rank this film? Mainly because of the strength of the modern day scenes and its premise, I'm going to give it 6. 6 out of 10 berries. I'm going to try to stay away from doing romantic films. It's not really my cup of tea, so I'm never ever going to give a romantic film a 10 out of 10. If anyone knows of a romantic film that they reckon I can give a 10 out of 10, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to give it a shot. Probably won't do it. But that's what I think of this film. Now, I know a lot of women are going to be out there saying, you're wrong, this is beautiful. No, it wasn't. It was just wrong. It wasn't as good as it should have been. And that is my final say. But that's on to next week. I'm actually going to do a film that people were watching and is named after a Eurythmics song. Really cryptic clue. Is anyone going to get that? If anyone does, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to see people attempt. If you want to get in touch with me, just search for @Berryman81. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, you name it, I'm probably there. And other than that, I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.